know, you better hide some of this stuff. These guys like to take it back and use it for their race team.
Dick, tell her food is what we're after.
Food is what he's after. Red Farmer? Damn, I tell you, too many more of us old people get together.
I
We
tell you
have a
what,
convention
that's
one.
about them stories. I got so much to tell, so much can't tell.
All right. How are you?
Oh, it was lovely. It was lovely.
And I made a pact with myself that I was going to get me a job when I got to be 85.
85.
85.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that.
You're working on that.
I'm working on
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, real nice.
Because I asked him the same thing. I said,
First time I've ever been in one.
Well, me too. They have one in Myrtle Beach.
I'm gonna have to send out for extra makeup for me and Steve Lane.
Yeah,
If they
a
got
lot.
If they got some color back, I swear that would beat mine.
I think so too. What's with the rouge?
You look so pretty.
What are you going to do about Beatty there on top?
By God, she can't do much about me now. Red, you got enough stuff to fill up them wrinkles like me?
Put embalming fluid on me.
That's right.
Judy, you look beautiful.
I've heard. But you're not proposing, though.
No, I'm not proposing at all.
There's one.
Is Jumbo?
Oh, no, Red Farmer's here. I can't believe it. Did you get him out of nursing home or what? You're right there. Hey, they get you out of nursing home or what?
What are you doing, Doc? Well, I figured I said, well, I knew Bobby would be the last one here.
They get you out of nursing home or what?
I told everybody an hour ago, I said, the last person walking that door is going to be Bobby Allison. I said, when he dies, they're going to have to hold the funeral up 30 minutes for him to get there, because he's going to be late.
The guy out there thought I was somebody, got my autograph.
The only way you can tell Red's lying is his lips are moving.
But Stroker doesn't start that stuff. We got to tell some stories on TV in here now.
Oh, yeah.
Some we can tell, some we can't.
Tell us something.
You got one more.
Or
You
is this
got,
for the auction or something?
yes, sir. You each gonna get one. That's
Pretty
on the
special
right.
to me. There's some
That's great.
big names here.
Yeah. Me, Barney.
That's right. Legend in your own mind, huh?
Are y'all taping? Am I at the right place? Am I right place? Well, that's the thing. See, all these people get together. These are the people you tell the stories on. So that could be a real problem. You may want to choose sides here. This group's going to tell stories on this group, while this group tells stories on that group. That'd probably work out pretty well. The problem I've always had with stories is when you tell them your way, there's always the other guy that's there that disagrees with the way you told it. Cale and I had some interesting, we told a story one time, and his version was totally different than my version. Same story, but he saw it totally different than I did.
Well, who is right?
We never did decide. We didn't have film.
So you couldn't look at
It's
it.
not like it is now where you can go back and look at the tape. Then it was just who could tell the story the best. And every race driver I've ever met is a pretty good storyteller. They learned that in self-defense. Think, do I look okay? Yeah, I think I look pretty good. I think my wife would be proud. My children, mom and dad, Michael, my brother. I think everybody don't think I look real.
You're ready.
I think compared to the other guys. Here we go now.
Welcome to that Fast Car Cafe in Nashville, Tennessee. What would happen if you put together the guys that built the cars with the guys that drove the cars, with the inspector that tore down the cars, with the writers that wrote about it, and the announcers that announced it? You're about to go behind the scenes and hear the stories directly from the legends that lived them. These are the guys that made racing what it is today. Let's walk through the tunnel and join 24 stock car racing legends.
Hey, I heard y'all had drivers
That's a long, man, it's a long way from Franklin.
You were the series director when Doyle and I guess it was Harold, had all that makeup on him. Do you remember? That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were at Talladega. And ABC or CBS was doing the race, and they had a makeup girl there, pretty girl. And the guy asked me, said, can we make up my late buddy Harold Kinder and Doyle in the flag stand? He went and told them, we're going to take your picture during the race. They said, yeah, that'd be great. So they made them up, look as bad as all of us, except they used lipstick, blacked their eyes, eyebrows, and that day it must have been 140 degrees in that flag stand. When it was over, they come down and all that old makeup had run down their face. They looked terrible. That was a good one. I never did tell Harold, but I told Doyle later on.
Good one.
I was afraid Harold would kill me.
You know, sitting here in Nashville, I was trying to figure out exactly where we were going to start and kind of seed the conversation. And one thing I loved about the Nashville racetrack is that you always knew who won the races. Bobby, wasn't that right? There was never any dispute at the end of the races as to who won a race?
Hardly ever.
All right, now who won that day? Was it you or Cale?
Well, no, they gave Cale the win.
Yeah.
And he still has
They
it.
didn't give it to me, I won it.
They gave
You know, a lot of strange things went on, but the Gasaway brothers, now Bill ran things, and Bill really was totally expressionless. You couldn't tell whether he liked what you did or didn't like what you did. But Joe, if he was mad, you could tell it from 200 feet away, and if he was happy, you could tell it from 300 feet away. And so it was one of those situations where old Joe, you know, he really jumped in there. And probably the best way I can position Joe, you know, he did whatever he thought he needed to do. Marty Robbins wanted to go racing, and I had a Dodge, and so we painted it up for Marty, and we took it to Talladega for him. And Marty wanted to pass Richard Petty. He just wanted to pass Richard Petty really bad. So I fixed the carburetor so the rings fell out of it. So Marty went out there and he passed Richard Petty. And he came in, he told Joe Gasaway, he said, I'm cheating, I want to be put all the way to the end of the line. So he thought he was doing all the right things, you know, and go to the end of the line. He didn't know how many of those other guys had rings that fell out, were out there still racing. But anyway, Joe Gasaway got really mad. Well, I had fixed the carburetor, but he knew right then he couldn't do anything directly to me, so he fined my brother Eddie $1,000 and took his NASCAR license away. So, you know, those kind of things went on. Well, I had a little trouble with Joe Gasaway here too. So one night I finished second here to a guy, and I was sitting there at the gas pump. You know, in those days we went to the gas pump and to the scale, and then the winner went to Victory Lane, and the next four went to their truck. So I was sitting at the gas pump, and the guy that won got out of his car, and he, hey, Joe Gasaway, come here. Joe Gasaway, come here. So Joe came walking over, you know, I got out of my car. What's this all about? I said, Joe, Bobby's got left side tires on the right. Old Joe says, I'm gonna fine you $1,000 a tire. So I said, wow, Joe, he's got them on the right there too. Old Joe turns around and he says, we ain't looking at him, we're looking at you. and that guy went to Victory Lane with right side tires with left side tires on the right, and I paid a $2,000 fine.
You had a deal here, didn't you? 2084.
I'm not real comfortable with him and these other guys sitting behind me. I really am not.
Hey, Darrell, they said it's just like old times?
Yeah.
I said, look who's behind me.
Do you think he set it up this way?
And you know what he said? He said, don't worry, he can't spin you out. I said, you don't know Cale.
That's right. He can turn you over. No, anything that Bobby says, I refer to Junior because I was just the driver. So whatever happened to those cars and all those things, there's a man over there that...
Junior didn't call Joe Gazaway.
I'll tell you a Joe Gazaway story, though, since we're telling Joe Gazaway stories. We're at Talladega, and at the time you had to have 2 windshield braces in your windshield. Well, they changed the rule to where you had to have 3 windshield braces in your windshield to hold the windshield in. So we're at Talladega, we're getting ready to practice. Joe comes down and says, you're not going on the track till you put that 3rd windshield brace in there. I said, Joe, just let us practice, we'll fix it later. No way, you're not going on the track. So I said, all right. So I went to the toolbox, got me a roll of black tape, crawled inside the car, and I put me a piece of black tape on the windshield, and I went and got Joe, and I said, now, are you happy now? Go on out. So that fixed that.
There you go.
But I think Junior probably can tell you the best Nashville story, or one of the best ones, when me and Neil fought who was going to get in victory circle. And Beatty could get in on that too.
Yeah, Neil won the race, and Darrell got it.
Do what?
Nah, they had a mix-up. A caution flag came out, and they did really flag Neil the winner of the race. And here I am over in the truck with, I guess, Beatty and Gazaway and all of them, trying to get things straightened out because I'd run first and second with the 2 cars with them, and it didn't really bother me which one I'm willing as far as that goes. Well, I felt like I was going to leave out there, and one of them wasn't going to want to drive no more. So, but Darrell really won the race. They just got the thing mixed up for a lap or 2, and Neil was flagged the winner of it. But Neil understand, and he was in the winner's circle. Of course, I went to the winner's circle with him. I told him, I said, Neil, I think we got the wrong driver. And he says, what do you mean? He said, didn't I win this thing? So I said, no, I don't think you did. But he got the trophy and got to kiss the girls, and Darrell, he squawked and carried on for about an hour. They finally gave him the race, and we went on.
I already had a guitar, so I didn't care.
You know, I think one of my memories of coming to Nashville is when it was high bank. What was it? What was it bank?
35 degrees.
35 degrees.
35
I don't know,
degrees.
some tremendous amount. But anyway, I just started driving from Herman Beam. And you know, Herman was the guy that, when the race started, the Turtle, and he just rode all day, but had good equipment, had pretty good cars. And so he gave me a chance to start driving for him. And we came up here, and I had never been to Nashville before, and boy, those banks were straight up, you know, and awesome looking place. And I won't ever forget that there was a billboard down in one of the turns with a big old clown, had a big old mouth, grinning. And the race got started, and Buck Baker and somebody, Buddy's daddy, Buck Baker, and somebody tangled up, and Tiny Lund, I think, all tangled up. And Buck's car went through that clown's mouth. I won't ever forget that, the billboard. I mean, just out of the racetrack through the billboard. But the funny part about it is I slowed down, and Tiny Lund's car caught on fire. And he jumped out of the car. You know, Tiny weighed, what, 350 pounds or whatever, and 6'8" or what it was. But he came down that 35-degree bank. He couldn't stop. But he came down there and ran into the side of Herman's car and bent the door in, my car that I was driving, and bent the door in on that thing. And I'm telling you, when the race was over, Herman was so mad he couldn't understand it, because Tiny had run into the side of his car on his feet and bent the door in.
Did your daddy get any kind of a prize for that accuracy right through the clown's face?
No, I don't think so. But what was the guy that was the harbor pilot that we raced against in Columbia and Savannah and all?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the guy weighed, I'm telling this on Bud Moore, because Bud was, we were running in Savannah, and Bud and this guy were having a terrible battle, and somehow Bud knocked him into the wall. Well, he went down there to see if he was all right. Well, the guy was really mean, and I come by there and I saw Bud had his arms around his leg like he was dragging him out of the car, and I said, have you lost your mind? That guy will kill you. And he said, I ain't trying to drag him out, I'm holding him in.
He was trying to get out that car to get at me, man. I was just holding him tight as I could. Everybody was cheering. You know how, remember how when you used to get in trouble, they'd all hang through the fence on the front straightaway and scream at you and holler and pull guns and knives. I said, man, if I ever get out of here alive, you know, I'll be lucky. Cale was talking about them bank track in Nashville. First time I ever come up here and seen this place. I know where you're coming from because they introduced me to all the previous champions and people that won all their divisions, and they were all in wheelchairs. I ain't lying to you.
I wish Bud had time to tell some of his Ned Jarrett
saying
stories.
one of them. Not one.
We went to a thing one night. They were honoring Ned, and they asked little Bud to get up because they were teammates at one time. And I never heard so many funny stories about Ned Jarrett.
Yeah.
I mean, Bud could fill you in. Little Bud could fill you in.
Go for it. No, man, I'm not going to tell
He had 4 pages of things on Ned.
They signed a truce.
Oh, they're not going to do that anymore?
No, I think he quit drinking since then.
Is that what it was?
What did he say?
He said you quit drinking.
I did. I got about half loaded, you know, and I was the guest. Nobody knew I was a guest. Remember, I wasn't on the thing. And at the last minute, I got up there, you know, and like nobody didn't even know who I was. And I had my old pair of shades on, something I turned around, and I just told them I thought this thing was going to go good looking out at the audience because everybody out there looked as redneck as I did, you know, and that's how we got it cranked up. But really didn't have to tell many stories on Ned. It was just talking about Bondi and them because Ned was with them, you know, and it just kind of suckered Ned into the deal. I mean, he really deserved it.
It was hard on his image, I can tell you that. Things I'd never heard before.
I worked for 60 years to try to build a good image. I love your story, though.
Oh, man, we were just talking about one a minute ago, but we can't tell you, you know. We'd like to. We'd like to be able to.
Hey, Bud, watch it.
Let's talk about some of those folks that used to be with us, that used to do some running. How about Tiny Lund? Now, there was a guy everybody's got stories about. Baker, Tiny Lund.
Right here in this very town. You guys remember when we had the cheetah as the mascot for the Charlotte Motor Speedway? Well, they started taking that thing around the area and to each racetrack, and they had this big old cheetah. And he's real friendly, somewhat, till you turned your back, and he'd knock the seat out of your britches in about 2 seconds. And for some reason, Tiny thought it would be clever to put this cat in my bedroom and leave it. So I come in, I'd been out with the racing group, and we got in kind of late, and I didn't even worry about turning the lights on. Got my clothes off, pulled the sheet up to my ear like that, and I heard this. What no? So I just clicked the light on, and this cat was directly in my face. Well, with that, I removed the door to the hallway on my hands and knees. I never even stood up. I just run head on into the door, crashed my head in, got the door. Down the hall I went, and everybody was running because I was running, and I thought they were running because the cat was after me. So I went to the length of the hall, and of course, there's Tiny up there with a big cat laughing himself to death, and me in my birthday suit at the far end of the... That was embarrassing enough, just that, but putting that cat in my room in the middle of the night like that was Tiny Lund special. You know something
Does
about
anybody
it.
remember an alligator story?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I can tell the alligator story.
There you go.
Buddy and I were at Santee Cooper. Tiny owned a fish camp down on Santee Cooper Reservoir. Buddy and I had gone down there to fish with him one August, fish for schooling stripers. And there's a little canal led out from Tiny's camp out to the main body of water, which is Lake Moultrie. And we were going motoring out real easily, real slowly to the big lake. And Buddy looked around and said, my goodness, there's an alligator there on the bank. So I didn't know there were alligators at Santee Cooper. There was a little alligator about 2 feet long, 2 or 3 feet long. And Tiny knew immediately he had something going with Baker, who is afraid of any creature that doesn't have any shoulders. So Tiny said, Buddy, there are man-eaters in Santee Cooper. And Buddy shuddered, you know, he got cold chill. We went on out there, and we'd had a few beverages. It was so hot and everything, so the day wore on, waiting for the fish to hit. And so Buddy started complaining about the heat and humidity, and Tiny said, well, strip down your skivvies and jump in, take a swim, cool off. Well, Buddy apparently had forgotten about the alligator, the man-eating alligator in Lake Moultrie, which was a lie, of course. And so he slips over the side of the boat to take a dip. Well, I turned around to say to Tiny, I can't believe he got in that water. And Tiny was gone. He wasn't there. So Buddy comes up, shakes his head, says, man, this is refreshing. Under he goes. Comes back up, throw me a line. Under he goes. About that time, Tiny couldn't hold his breath any longer, and he surfaced and came up, and I said, Buddy, why didn't you just swim to the boat? He said, when you think an alligator's got your manhood, you go where the alligator wants.
I can still
and
hear.
Buddy says I didn't tell the rest of the story. And I never have, but I'll let Buddy tell the rest of the story.
Well, I can tell you, anybody knows Tiny knows that he really had a great time with people. And as he grabbed me where you're not supposed to grab people, the first thing was not on alligators. I thought one had me, but I was really concerned about everything else. And under all this, I'm trying to keep up with whatever has me, and I hear this. But I left him out there for a while. I got to the boat paddle before he could get back in the boat, and I made him really appreciate getting back into that boat, because every time he come up,
I thought Buddy was going to decapitate him when he was swinging the boat paddle like that. And finally, I told him, I said, my God, Buddy, they'll charge you with manslaughter if he drowns, because he can't tread water any longer. He finally let him back in the boat.
I'm sure most of you here know the story about Tiny and I years ago in Atlanta, but I'm going to tell it again. Tiny was a mountain of a man, you know, just tremendous man, and strong as a bull. And it was in our early days of racing, and Tiny and I were staying at the same motel in Atlanta. Got home that afternoon, we went to the pool and got in the pool, and Tiny would just put his hand on you, you know, and you'd go down. Well, he almost drowned me. I couldn't touch the bottom. He's standing on the bottom. He was just having fun, you know. He was bobbing me around like a baby, you know. And so I finally said, Tiny, I said, you about to drown. I got to get some air, man. Oh, you know, he just push you back down. And anyway, finally got out of the pool and went to our rooms. And Tiny was in the shower, taking a shower. And I got me a trash can and filled it up with water and ice. Got it good and cold. I said, I'm going to get him back. So I sneaked in there, and I got up on top of the tub there where I could really get the thing over on Tiny, and I poured that ice water on down, and it almost scared him to death, really, with all that ice water hitting him. But anyway, he came out of the shower in his birthday suit. I went out the door, and he came out the door. It was still daylight. And right behind me through the parking lot we went. And I ran to the car, and the deck lid was up. And I turned around that car, and there was a little old lady there, must have been 80 years old, about 4 feet and a half tall. And when I went by, it startled her. And when she looked up, Tiny come sliding right up to her, you know, in his birthday suit and all. Tiny says, "Pardon me, ma'am," and turned around and went back to the room. But he was always pulling something.
David, you got one?
I know one on Tiny. Well, it's not on Tiny. It's on me. Really? We was racing up there at Hickory one time, and I was come up behind Tiny, and in fact, I believe I was lapping him. I was leading the race at that time, and he wouldn't get over. And I kept bumping him, you know, and trying to get by him. And he stuck that old big arm out the window and shook his fist at me, you know. I said, well, now, if I don't hit him now, he's going to think I'm scared of him, you know. So we went down to one. I hit him and spun him out, you know. So went on. I would have to win the race. And after the race, here he comes. Somebody gave him a cherry pie, and he was eating it. And he walked up to me. He said, look at him. He said, why'd you spin me out? And I said, well, you know why I spun you out, you know. I said, if you hadn't stuck that fist out the window and shook it at me, I wouldn't have spun you out, you know. And he said, well, that's all right. And he patted me on the shoulder and had that pie and said, bam! Got that pie and just covered my face with that cherry pie. I was standing there. I couldn't do nothing but laugh. You know, of course, I wasn't about to hit him no way. But he really enjoyed that. He really did. That done him more good to hit me in the face with that pie than it did to win a race.
You talking about Tiny, I remember a time up in Wisconsin it was, we was up there running a race, and Tiny was up there, and we was all sitting at the Holiday Inn. We went out to a restaurant to eat, and I think they had a few cool ones between here and there, and Joe Frazon was there with Tiny Lund, and they were sitting each end of about a 20-man table, all of us sitting there having dinner, having a butter fight with the cubes of butter and the knives, flipping them back and forth. We ended up back at the Howard Johnson, and about 11 o'clock at night, we got back to Howard Johnson, and Joe and Tiny decided they wanted to go swimming in the pool. They had an indoor swimming pool at the Howard Johnson, but nobody had bathing suits. They said, well, that ain't gonna stop them. Everybody's already gone to the rooms that's closed now, so they opened the pool up, went in there, was gonna go skinny dipping. And I told them, I said, well, I gotta go back to the room. I wasn't feeling too good anyway, this, that, and other. I went down to my room. So there, about 6 of them out there skinny dipping at the Howard Johnson at midnight. So I went back to the room, and I was about to sleep, and I heard a knock on the door real quietly. So I made a mistake. I walked up there, and I opened up the door just a crack. About that time, Joe Frazon and Tiny both sitting there, and they're all togetherness, grabbed me on each shoulder, and down the hall I went with my toes dragging the ground, and I went skinny dipping with them. And I didn't do it on purpose. But that's the way he was. He wanted to have fun. Everybody else going to have fun. So they drug me down the hall and threw me in the pool about midnight.
Now, if my calculation's correct, we've told 5 stories. We've got 4 nakeds and 1 in the skivvies.
And all of them are usable. That's the good news. Is they're all usable.
A racing story about Tiny. Back when NASCAR first started the division with the Camaros and Mustangs, it was Baby Grand. Well, I drove a car for Huggins, which now, Huggins Tire Company. It was a Mustang, and Tiny drove a Mercury for Bud Moore. Well, I was fortunate. I was in a real good car and had pretty good luck. Tiny and I got in pretty good battle as far as wins and everything like that. Well, I'm on the pole, and he's outside pole at Bristol, Tennessee. And we're going around there in Bristol, Tennessee. They had banked, they were going to be the highest bank racetrack in the world, or whatever it was anyway. And so we're going down the straightaway, and we're coming to get 1 lap to go. And Tiny runs in the side of me, bam. So I look over to him, and he's laughing, ha, 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 like that. Well, he runs into me again. And I said, what in the world is he doing? So we go into the first, second turn, and he just normal. I said, well, ain't nothing going to happen. And all of a sudden, he comes right down next to me and spits water in my car. Now, how I did this, and it got all over my goggles. and here I am getting ready. I got to go through 3 and 4 now and start a race. And he has spit water all in. How he had that much water in his mouth? He may have had a jug. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm coming down the back straightaway, and naturally I'm trying to get my goggles cleaned off, and I got water all over my face, and we all had open face helmets at that time. And I go through 3 and 4 anyway. I win the race. After the race comes over, he's laughing. He said, man, I got you wet, didn't I? And that's all he didn't say congratulations on the race. He said, man, I got you wet, didn't I? I mean, that's the way he was. We're at Atlanta Motor Speedway, same way. 1.5-mile racetrack. And we're going down the straightaway, and Smokey Unick's Camaro was on the pole, and I was outside, and Tiny was third. And he's running into me. He didn't run into Smokey's car. He's running into me. And me starting on the outside. I said, what in the world is he trying to do? And that's just the way he was. He'd race you hard. He would run into you once in a while, but there ain't a guy sitting in here who wouldn't run into you. If they said he would.
The guys today don't have this same kind of...
Ned would not.
No, Ned wouldn't have done
Ned never
it. The guys
ran
today don't have this kind of camaraderie and this kind of these stories to tell, I don't think.
They don't get to enjoy life like we did either.
No.
You want to say something, Bud?
Ned, you hung out with a bad crowd, though, as I recall. Didn't you and Ralph Earnhardt used to go to the races together, you and your 2 wives?
Yep, sure did.
How did that
Ned
work
and his
out?
2 wives?
No, I knew that.
No, not his 2 wives. Their 2 wives.
Yeah. The group.
Yeah, the 2
Oh, I
Marthas.
get it.
Yeah.
Oh, my math was...
The 2 Marthas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ralph's wife's name Martha, and my last name was Martha. And yeah, they were good friends, and we'd go to races together a lot.
Did you come home together?
Not every time, no. Of course, most of you guys have raced against Dale, and of course, Junior raced against Ralph, and he was a tough competitor. And Junior, I've always felt that if there was ever a chip off the old block, that Dale Earnhardt is a chip off the old block as far as his dad was concerned. It looked like Dale Jr. is about the same way.
I was going to say chip number 2.
Yeah, right. And he would race you hard, knock you off the racetrack, and come up and put his arm around you, Ralph would, and say, "Oh, buddy, I didn't mean to get in that corner that hard." He said, "I didn't mean to run you off the track." And he'd butter up to you, One night we were down at Gaffney, South Carolina. It was a 3/4 of a mile dirt track, and we was running these 37 Ford Coupes. This was in the sportsman division, and long straightaways and short turns, sort of like Martinsville. And I was leading the race, and he hit me going into turn 1. And so hard that I just kept going. Of course, he didn't have any bank or guardrail or anything like that. It went off of a bank a little bit, and that thing started rolling. And finally got back on its wheels and rolled down there and hit a pine tree and just totally demolished my race car. Of course, we only had one, and we raced it 4 or 5 times a week. And my wife had planned a birthday party for Ralph the next night in a little restaurant in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Was going to race at the old Charlotte Fairgrounds track on Friday night and then go over to Kannapolis to this restaurant and have that birthday party for Ralph. Well, Martha couldn't drive. She didn't drive back then. And I had to take her to that thing. And she was the host. I wouldn't get out of that car and go in there and help him celebrate his birthday. No way in the world was I going to help him celebrate a birthday. But, the next week he was out there with his arm around her. Everything's okay. And you could never get even with the guy. He was good, but it didn't matter how many times you hit him, he's always ahead of you.
The only way to outrun him was to stay away from him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's the only way you beat him is you had to get quicker than he was, and a lot quicker too. I mean, you had to get where he just didn't get nowhere around you. I spent a lot of time
He'd get on that last lap, and boy, he'd just put that bumper up to you.
He was the best I ever seen at that. If he was close to you, you just ran second if you was lucky.
That's the Earnhardt philosophy. You hit me once, I hit you twice.
That's the new math.
Hey, on that one, let me tell you what I saw at MIS one time. Cale, DW. They really fighting. DW's leading, Cale's leading, DW. When it comes checker flag time, Cale's leading. Cale run on down into turn 1 and backed off. And here comes DW. He's run 4,000 miles an hour. I said, oh, hell. Cale's going to get rear-ended. He's going to put it, just as he got to him, Cale turned up the track. DW went down across, got in the mud. It had been raining. He missed him. It had been raining about 3 or 4 days.
That was the day we started the race, like at 5:30 at night?
Yeah, that's the one.
It had been raining for 3 or 4 days. And DW, so much water down there, he couldn't get out of the race car. He had to stay in the race car. They towed it out.
That was Junior's fault. He came on the radio, and me and Cale, we were having a spirited battle. And Junior came on the radio, and he said, "Darrell, don't you let that little scoundrel beat you." So, man, I'm up on that wheel hard as I can get up on that wheel. And Cale, he ran into me on the last lap over in the third turn and bumped me up out of the way and won the race. And, of course, I had to, try to pursue after him.
How'd it feel down there bogged down in that mud?
Pretty embarrassing.
Cale's hit a lot of people at Michigan.
Oh, I'm telling
He's
you.
He's done that to me one time up there.
He ever hit you, David?
Every time I run
How
with
many people in here has Cale hit?
He got you at Michigan one day.
He's done that to me one day at Michigan. I was driving that K&K Insurance Dodge, Harry Hyde. Cale kept hammering on me and hammering on me. We was running first and second, I believe, or second and third. And finally, I come on the radio. Mr. Croscroft was there that day, and I said, "Harry," I said, "I want you to tell Nord that I'm not crazy, but there's going to be a hell of a wreck out here if Cale hits me one more time. I don't mean to tear his car up, but I said, if he hits me one more time, I'm going to park him." So we go down in the first and second corner, and he leans on me a little bit lightly, and I'm going up the back straightaway. We go into 3, and Cale comes down and hits me. Man, we come off that fourth turn, and I just drove right into him and turned him around. Round he went, round I went, down through the grass. It had rained. We was, I think, in the grass, on the racetrack, back in the grass, back on the racetrack, slid up in front of everybody backwards. Everybody missed us. We both got cranked up and got going again. I'm not sure if Cale ended up winning that race, but we both finished, I think, in the top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I believe he might have been driving your car, Junior,
I
at
was
the
driving
time. I'm
Junior's
not
car,
sure.
and we won it, and I had hit you a time or two that day, but my car was handling so bad, you know. And when you hit me, you straightened it out. And I was going. I appreciate that, Dave.
Harry Hyde come back on the radio, and Harry says, "Don't you let that son of a gun run over you. I don't want you to take no crap off of nobody."
You're kind of like Buddy's talking about Harry Gant this morning. You know, all of Harry's old cars just barely would run.
Oh, they always run. Worst running cars.
Just doggone this old car. This won't hardly get out the pits, and we lucked up and won. You know,
If Harry could have ever had a good carburetor, there ain't no telling how many races he'd have won. But every race he won, old car was skipping bad, man.
I asked him up here when I got up there, I said, "Didn't you win? Because we're going to run that Mark Colley thing." I said, "Well, didn't you win that thing a couple times?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "But all them boys had good running cars. This old car I had," he said, he was just telling me all about it, you know, and he said how they just caught him all at the end of the race, you know, and they were just blowing up through there. And he said, but just somehow, I don't know how they didn't get by me there in the last couple of laps. You know, he just happened to limp on home and win the race. I thought, yeah, I'm
Skipping
going
and a
for that.
duping. They dupe on him, too.
I had one good carburetor. I go over Junior's one night, we fixing to run the modified race at Daytona on the oval. You know, I think that's one of the first ones that's going to run on the oval in a long time. And so we built an old Firebird there in the garage. Didn't even have a trunk or anything held in, just open. Gas tank set right in the back. Didn't know anything about building no super speedway car. So I go to Junior's one night to get some parts, and he's sitting there with them little glasses down his nose, and he's got all these carburetors cut in half. Now they're like that, you know. And I told him I was going down to Daytona. He looked at it and he said, "How would you like to have about 15 more horsepower with a restrictor plate?" I said, "That'd be good." So he gives me this carburetor. He said, "This thing is built for a restrictor plate." I said, "Okay." So he gave me the carburetor and said, "And don't lose it." So we got a Daytona, you know, and I got his carburetor on there, you know, and we go on a racetrack and practice, and we pretty fast. There was nothing wrong with the carburetor, it was just something nobody else didn't have. It didn't push the rule either way, and nobody had it. He'd been over there studying this stuff. Junior knew the restrictor plates were coming in down the road, so he's getting ahead of the game.
See what they're made out of.
You can tell the truth, you're retired.
I thought I was going to lose that carburetor all the time I was down there. We win the race. And we had about a lap lead, front tire blistered, and it's shaking like crazy. And I didn't know what was wrong with the car. I never had run no place like that. But then after the race was over, I still scared I was going to lose. I couldn't enjoy the race. I couldn't enjoy winning because I'm sitting here thinking they're going, now it's in a little bit, I'm going to lose this carburetor. I can't go back over to Wilkesburg without that carburetor. But that was a good one.
Talking about Cale getting hit, you know more about it than I do, but the two Germans, you was in an IROC race up at Ohio, and one of them hit you and spun you out or something, and you was arguing with one of them, and it was the wrong German you was arguing with. He says, "I didn't hit you up there. I hit you up at this other turn."
Started an international incident.
Yeah, I was really on him hard because I didn't know one from the other, and I was on him hard when the race was over. And he was standing there, he didn't know what I was talking about. Like say, I was telling him where he hit me. He said, "No, I didn't hit you there. I hit you back up in the other turn when I was talking to the wrong man that had really hit me in."
How long did it take you two to get together and talk after 1979 at Daytona?
1 week.
1 week?
Yeah, at Rockingham.
In the truck.
They had to talk. No, we didn't have any truck meetings then.
No,
We didn't have no truck meetings then.
Not back in those days.
Really?
In fact, it
I was
was
79 now. It ain't been that long
In
ago.
fact, it was 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm telling you what.
It ain't been 15 years ago.
It was 2
No.
weeks. We got together 2 weeks later in Rockingham.
We handled our own deals back then, and NASCAR didn't handle them for us.
Well, all I know is I was in the truck in 79. I know that.
Well, you've
That's
had
a different story.
You've had
Every week in 79.
You've had the pleasure a lot more than the rest of us combined of being in the truck. Okay, but we got together 2 weeks after that at Rockingham, in the third and fourth turn.
How'd you get it worked out?
Well, the wreckers came and got us.
No, 2
That's
weeks
right, they
after.
did at Rockingham.
Yeah.
And it was, that was really an accident though, wasn't it, Donnie?
Oh, yeah, all of them were accidents. All of them were accidents. But it wasn't good because a lot of other people got involved, and it was, Cale and I were racing hard, and them things happened. As far as getting together and being friends again, I don't know if that's ever happened yet.
Wait a minute, guys. I've seen this show. Don't do it.
Hey, Donnie, Cale's getting red again. He's getting a little bright.
And he's behind, too, right? He's behind you.
Bobby's way over there.
I was going to say, how about Bruiser over here? What was your,
He'll show up.
what was your recollection of that whole deal?
He'll drive up.
Let me tell
Well,
you
see-
what on Bobby.
Bobby was in hog heaven. He went to a race and a fight broke out. He was in hog heaven.
I was going along, you know, I was ahead of them on the track. My crew came on the radio and said, give them a lot of room. They're racing. I said, I will drive down in the grass if I have to. They never got to me. I looked back and they're wrecking. Well, I had to go around and get the checker flag. So I had to pass the wreckage once, went and got the checker flag. So I decided, well, I'll stop and give Donnie a ride. So
How about me? You
pulled
want to
up-
go give me a ride?
You did what?
That's what I got mad about. You wanted to take Donnie and leave me there.
I couldn't tell exactly what you was mad about, but I found out you wasn't mad. So I stopped, and Cale's way over there, and Donnie's over here, and I said, you want a ride? He said, no, go on, I'll get a ride. Well, with that, Cale came running at me, hollering it was my fault that the wreck happened. And, you know, I couldn't understand this. I think I questioned his ancestry, but I'm not sure. Well, he came running a little bit closer, you know, and he yelled at me some more, and I probably questioned his ancestry again. With that, he hit me in the face with his helmet. And I looked down in my lap, a couple of drops of blood hit down in my suit, and I said, I better get out of this thing and handle this right now or run from him the rest of my life. So I crawled out of the car. With that, he went to beating on my fist with his nose.
Boy, this thing's got clean out of hand.
If you need a good,
Tell it like it is.
If you need a good attorney, I'll represent you.
You was there.
He was a little bit riled. I was sitting in my car when this thing started.
Two of the greatest fiddling here, fidgeting with first place. Passing some of the strikers in the last lap. Trying to take it home. It's all come down to this. Out of turn 2, Donnie Allison in first. Where will Cale make his move? He comes to the inside. Donnie Allison throws the block. Cale hits him. He slides. Donnie Allison slides. They hit again. They climb in the turn. They're hitting the wall. They're head on the wall. They slide down to the inside. Let's watch those third place cars. They're out of it. Who is going to win it? Coming down. Third place. They're coming around for the finish. Between A.J. Foyt and Richard Petty. Down the back straightaway come the leaders now. 2 cars are out. In the backstretch are the leaders. Watching for the leaders to they're still up in turns 3 and 4. The leaders are up in turns 3 and 4. Coming down, Richard Petty is now pulling out in front. Darrell Waltrip is in second. A.J. Foyt is in third. Here they come. Waltrip trying to slingshot. Petty is out in front at the line. Waltrip to the inside. Petty wins it. Sixth career, and there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison. The tempers overflowing. They're angry. They know they have lost. And what a bitter defeat.
A couple of very hard men, very hardly upset. And Bobby Allison is stopped by his brother to help. There's Bobby Allison's car, number 15.
They're leading them away.
Darrell, Cale Yarborough there. Very upset, very upset.
And that one incident, you can still turn the TV on and see that incident that really excited the people and made the people come buy a ticket for the next week.
It was one of the first races
one of
that
the guys-
excited the press, because we were up in the press box. Tom and I were sitting next to each other, and I was literally on my feet balancing myself between 2 rows of desks like this, and I was standing up trying
Hollering,
to catch.
hit him.
Yeah, no.
No, he was yelling, Richard's going to win the race.
Watch the
Richard's
finish.
going to win the race.
Watch the finish.
I
Tom
said, yeah, I know that. I want to see the fight.
Never mind that. There'll be a hell of a fist fight in the third turn. And sure enough, we heard Ken's voice come on in and say, and there's a fight in the third turn. We looked, you couldn't see it, but we saw images of it on the television screen that they had in there, and it looked more like a dance than a fight at the time. I mean, why has guy got one leg up?
That's why we've all been around all these years, Barn. We've had no lack of stuff to talk about, have we?
Well, let me tell you what. The one guy that really added to that the most is sitting right in front of me. Because the TV cameras, they did a good job of TV in that race, being the first live race, but nothing like it is now. And what the people saw was two cars wrecking across the lake. And he did the job.
Yep.
His commentary is what got the people going, including the news media and everything else. And you did a good job, Ken. I'm not blaming you for anything. We were over there.
We need another deal like that now.
Absolutely.
It's coming.
It's coming? Where do you think it's, where?
Well,
I want to be there.
Shortly, I think.
Probably in the next 2 weeks.
Well,
chance.
We haven't seen a deal.
the only thing that I disagree with that, it's not coming in that same way because you're not going to have two cars racing each other like those two cars are racing each other. Now it might be.
Now the drivers accost each other.
Now it might be.
And I even saw them throw Perrier bottles at each other.
Yeah.
So it may never be the same as it was.
We need to talk about that. Now you got all these high cotton racetracks with all these amenities. I think we ought to go back to what it was like, some of those first tracks you drove on. I can't believe all of this tribe can sit here without some great stories about those early super speedway races. Higgins?
Well, I was
Right
thinking-
here's one of the
I
best.
wanted Buddy to tell about his crash at, I think it was Smoky Mountain Speedway. Since we're
Don
there.
Namath's place.
Yeah.
Great story.
That thing's been in every newspaper and just about everything, but it actually happened. I blew a right front tire at the old Smoky Mountain Raceway, went head on into the wall, and I broke about 4 or 5 ribs on the right-hand side there. And they sent a guy out there about the size of,
Barney
well, about 145 pounds to get hold of me, and I weighed 225 pounds then. And first off, he got me by the head and tried to take me out of the car. And then they brought this little gurney out there with these little small wheels on them, and the thing was 6 foot tall, and they had an old Pontiac ambulance there. And this guy finally gets some help, and they get me on there. Well, they put the straps on me, and they carry me over to this old Pontiac. I can still remember seeing that Indian on, it looked like it was on fire, had that big red face on it there. And I'm going, man, I'm hurt. I'm really hurt. And they put me up in the back of that thing, and here goes this ambulance, wadding round the corner, and I go, golly, I don't think I run this fast tonight. So down to the back straightaway, stops like so, and they have to open the gate, and you have to leave from the back straightaway. Well, I'm laying there like this, and I'm going, oh, man. And about that time, this guy hit the accelerator, the back door flew open. They didn't tighten the wheels up on the thing. I shoot out in front. They hadn't put a red flag out, so people are coming out of the pit. And I'm going round and round down the racetrack like that. And I see these cars going whoom, whoom, whoom on both sides, and I went, I got to do something, I got to do something. And I got one arm out of the straps like that, and I started doing like that. Well, I went down, hit in the red mud on the inside of the racetrack, and this gurney goes end over end down there. And the little guy come up there, and he said, are you hurt? And I said, no, I'm dead. All you got to do is just cover me up here. Well, we went on in, and that was the first time I had anything to do with Don Naaman. He would later on become the president of Talladega Motor Speedway, and
That's funny.
I'm telling you, I thought I was going to die right there. If I hadn't got my arm out, I know Joe Frazon would hit me head on because he was coming right down the back straightaway, and I got my arm out and started doing that, and that got his attention. He said he didn't know what it was. He thought it was a hood going down there.
Remember the day you broadcast from the bathroom? Remember that story?
Yeah, I was working the pits for MRN and needed to go to the bathroom. Of course, we know back then, the restroom was right up on the front stretch, heck, just 20 or 30 feet behind the pits. And Barney, I guess, said, let's go to the pits, and Ned Jarrett and Richard Petty was about to come in and make a pit stop, and he's leading the race, and there I was standing in there doing my business, and Barney threw it down to me, and I had a stopwatch around my neck, and I heard the car come to a halt, and I looked at that thing. I described the pit stop. They changed 2 tires, putting in a can of fuel, and down and away in 17 seconds. You could hear it all, you know, so I didn't need to see what was going on, and come to find out, I called it just perfect. Probably never been looking at it.
The guys next to you, though, they were the ones who were giving the great looks there in the bathroom. 3 guys standing right next to Ned.
You were luckier than I was, because when Richard had his big turnover at Daytona, that was one of those races where it had stabilized, not much was happening, and it was when they were building the brand new facility at Daytona. And the only restrooms were all the way on the roof. Remember that, Eli? They had them all the way on top. And I guess I'd had too much coffee that morning. And so it was, what, 150, 175 miles into the race. And things were just kind of motoring along. And I said to Bob Stenner, the producer, can I take a break for just a couple of minutes? He said, well, we're going to go to a commercial break. And I have this feature to do about Dale Earnhardt, which is going to take another 3 minutes. So you got 5 minutes. Don't worry about a thing. Went to the commercial break, ran out, ran upstairs. And as I was standing there, it began to get suddenly very quiet. And the next thing, this very young lady was standing at the door saying, "You've got to come now!" And I said, well, I really can't right now. She said, no, you've got... And that's when we found out about the disaster. And Ned and Economaki carried on. But talk about life's darkest moment. That was it for me.
Scary time.
What about some of those other stories about the old track?
Junie Donlevy has got a great story about going to the restroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us that one, Junie, about the rest stop and
How about the rest stop?
the rest stop on the way to Atlanta, Junie.
Yeah. How much your team thought of you that night?
I really found out how much they thought of me. We were on our way to Atlanta and riding in a van and pulled in this rest area at Durham. And 2 guys up front went on in. There was only 4 of us in the van. And they went on in, and I'm laying there, and I said, well, maybe I'd better go in too, so we don't have to stop again. So I stepped on a boy getting out that was laying on the floor. I went on in, only had 3 stalls, went by them, thought sure they saw me, and I didn't make any noise. And they finished, washed hands, went on out. I finished, washed my hands, went on out, and I saw the taillights of the car going out the driveway. And I said, they got to be playing a trick on me, you know. We in the middle of the night, and we're on the way to Atlanta. So I waited about 15, 20 minutes, and I said, well, they're not going to come back and get me. But at that time, I got to seeing faces coming out behind all these trees and everything, and it had a big audience, I thought. Anyway, I waited till the tractor and trailer pulled up, and I went over when he stopped, and I started talking. Never paid any attention to me, just like I wasn't even there, which I could understand. I'm on foot at a rest area in the middle of the night. But I kept talking, and finally I went all the way back to my childhood, where I had gone to grade school, where my grandfather lived. And the only thing that saved me, when my grandfather died, they sold the property that he had his farm on, and they built houses on it, and this truck driver happened to live in one of those houses. Wow. And I mean, I had to go that, it took me about 45 minutes before I got him to realize what had happened. Anyway, he took me on into Concord, and he had a flat tire and he had need to get fixed, so I called Elmo. Explained everything to Elmo to Gail, and she told Elmo, and then the phone hung up. I dialed it back, and I said, ma'am, let me tell you something. You tell Elmo if he hangs this damn phone up my face one more time, I'm going to come up and blow his trail off his foundation. Anyway, I finally got him to realize that I wasn't kidding, and he came on down and picked me up and took me back, and he was just laughing like, you know, it was a funny deal. It wasn't that funny to me. But anyway, he took me on into Atlanta, and I got to the track. My crew came up, and this boy said, you know, we know your side of the story. Now, I'm going to tell you my side of it. And I said, don't worry about it, it's my fault. But that evening, I think Dick Beatty announced on the loudspeaker, make sure Don Levy's got a ride back to the motel. But you know, it was so funny. That was the only weekend I can ever remember that everybody at the racetrack was having a good time. Of course, it was at my expense, but everybody was laughing and grinning and
Talking
really,
about you.
well, I knew that they were. They won't, you know, but I wish that racing could be like that all the time, because I've never seen
Just
a
get out of
group.
the truck more often.
I don't think I'd work again, but everybody was just at ease and having a good time, and it was really a very jolly weekend.
But has it changed? Has it really changed? It seems to a lot of us that it isn't as much fun as it used to be, and maybe it's just because we're older.
Let me tell you what the difference is. Back then, late 60s, early 70s, David, myself, Cale, Bobby, we go out and eat dinner or something, or we go somewhere together, you know, and Buddy, once in a while we sneak him in there, and they don't do that anymore. It's so individual now. The drivers, they got so many obligations, and whether it be with sponsors or whatever it is, and there's none of that palling around at all. Now we race each other, race hard as you could race, but at least we were better friends, I feel like, than most of the guys are now. And you know, Darrell come along and
He messed up everything.
well,
I did
no,
not.
No, he had a hard time. He had a hard time really making friends because
I was just a lot younger than these guys, and it was hard for me to fit in.
Now, before you drift too far, I want Leonard Woods to tell a story about the time he's going down the interstate and he hears this race car coming.
Exactly what I was going to say, buddy. You
That
got
is
to
the funniest-
tell that story, Leonard.
You mean about the hitchhiker?
Yeah.
We was coming home from Riverside in 1965, and Gurney had won and Marvin had finished third, I believe. And it was Marvin's car was on the back of this trailer. We had a little ton truck, you know, that we pulled the trailer, and then the car was on the back of the trailer, just open. So it was Ray, my brother Ray, and stopped in Greenville, South Carolina, at a truck stop. And we came out, got in the truck, and these people were standing around. You know how normally people's going to stand around and look at a race car, you know, so we didn't think nothing about it. We got in the truck and leave. And
That was January. It was cold, too, wasn't
yeah,
it?
20 degrees. And it was at night, and we get between Greenville and Charlotte, and the truck begins vibrating, you know, and so I'm wondering what it is, and Ray says, you can even feel it in the truck. And so I roll down the glass, look around, see if it's an airport nearby, you know, making all this noise. And so then it quit. And then we got up and yelled to Charlotte, and we had to stop in Charlotte for a minute. Meanwhile, we passed Glenn on the way. He's in the station wagon, but he don't recognize this. But as we get ready to turn off the exit in Charlotte, it started up again. So I opened the door and looked out, and there was steam coming out the exhaust pipe. So I told Ray, I said, stop this thing. And I get out and go around, and I see this silhouette behind the windshield. It's a figure of a man or something back behind this windshield. And I look in there, and he's got Marvin's helmet on. And I says, what do you think you're doing in there? He says, let's go. I says, I'll let you go in a minute. About that time, Ray come around the corner, so we getting with him pretty heavy, you know, jerking him out of the car. He's a screaming and hollering. We're about to break his leg, and we turned him loose. He just got comfortable again. So finally, we get him out, and we're sitting there talking to him. He says, you ever heard of Larry Frank? You know, we used to race with Larry Frank for years, you know. We said, never heard of him. He says, I'll tell you one thing, y'all got a long ways to go then. Anyway, about that time, the law came by and they took care of him, you know. But he cut my clothes bag open. I guess he's looking for clothes because it's 20 degrees.
Didn't he want to know where the heater switch was on there?
Didn't you have your car pass yourself on the highway one day?
Yeah, one night.
One night?
Yeah, we used to race at Chinese Corner out Virginia Beach every Tuesday night, and Bud Allman was the crew chief, and we pulled it behind. He had a 55 Ford, and this was in 55 or 56, and we were coming back up the road about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was laying in the back seat, sort of dozing off, and Bud was running about 90 miles an hour on this country road. There were no interstates back then. And all of a sudden, I felt the back end of the tow car wiggle a little bit, and it woke me up, and I sat up, and I looked over to my left, and here come that 37 Ford right up beside of us. And what had happened, see, we had those man-made tow bars, and you stick a rod through the end of the frame and the tow hitch, and then you put a Carter key in there to hold it. Well, somebody had forgot to put the Carter key in there and secure the thing, and we'd probably come 150 miles since we had left the racetrack, but it just finally worked itself loose, and that rod came out, and here come that 37 Ford right up beside of us. Well, it ran up they're set up to pull to the left, and so it just gradually pulled to the left, and it went up a bank that was sloped, and it had enough speed and momentum. When it went up that bank, it cleared a barbed wire fence. And we could see that thing. We just had one little tail light on the back of it, and we could see that thing going down through the field. It looked like a rabbit tail, going down through the field. It got right down to a creek, and it stopped. Must have been a quarter of a mile down through there. So we went down and got it. Of course, we pulled one axle out so we could tow it. And so fired the thing up, got back up there, and didn't think about it till I got back to the fence. How are we going to get that thing back across there? There wasn't no bank that you could get a run. I don't know if I'd have done that anyway, but that barbed wire fence was still intact. And I told Bud, I said, well, stand back. We've got to go through it. That's all we can do. And so I just ran her through that barbed wire fence and got on. We saw lights start coming on in the farmhouses around there. Fortunately, we were out in the country, and those lights started coming on. I said, we better get out of here because we're fixing to get ourselves in trouble. But the tow end was all bent, and the wheels were going one way and another, and we drug it about 20 miles into a little town, and so we could be able to get it fixed, and blew a tire out right as we got in the edge of town on the front because the thing was towed out so much. But can you imagine if I'd been in heavy traffic and that thing would have come loose like that?
Eli, you talk about a race car passing somebody on the road. I remember back in the early 50s, and Banjo Matthews had a Rocket 88 Oldsmobile engine in a 36 coupe. We was running West Palm Beach, Florida on a half-mile dirt at that time. And somewhere about 25 or 30 miles below West Palm Beach, their tow truck broke down. And they was running late as it was. They was already qualifying and they knew it. He backed that car off of the trailer, fired it up, and come up that little old 2-lane road coming up to the West Palm Beach Speedway. And he had the thing rolling, I guess, 100, 120 mile an hour, bouncing up and down that road, and passed the highway patrol going the other way, and that highway patrol, all I could see was the yellow and black car go whew, going the other way. Well, he turned around trying to make a U-turn as quick as he could to try to catch the car. Banjo come flying into the pits, went straight through the infield, was inside the racetrack. Come through the pit gate, pulled right up in line. He was next in line to qualify, and he was out on the racetrack qualifying that pit. And he wasn't sure which one it was, and he's sitting in that pit 20 minutes trying to figure out which car he was going to get a ticket to.
Guys, we need to take a quick break here so they can rack in some new tape. So let's just take a quick breather here for a few minutes.
Have you changed jobs again?
No, I'm just helping Jimmy.
Jimmy?
Yeah. I'll help Jimmy. That's the one I'm working with now.
He gonna run Talladega?
Yeah, he's gonna run Talladega. Yeah, I don't think their motor's that. He's got to have their motor, of course, to freshen up, and then get up and check the valve, bring tension, and put it back in the car. So I don't know. We tested down there, top enough to be top 5, but I don't know what he's got. Some of the other cars to show up. We tested down about 2 weeks ago, ran pretty decent. Got to qualify Thursday, so after we get this deal done Wednesday night, I got to take off and go straight back. Be down there for Thursday morning. Got one practice session, qualify Thursday.
I didn't know if you were. In fact, I didn't even know if he was still running or what.
He's been short sponsorship, but he got some Dunlap golf money for this Talladega race. He's going to run this one, and I think Las Vegas. That's the only 2 races he's going to run this year. We ran Charlotte, ran 12. Run pretty decent with it, but had a pickup pit crew. Had one Barty Jack man here, Barty tire man here, tire man here. And we were running 8th, going in the pits, come out 15th. Then he got back up to 10th, and then he picked up a push about the last 10 laps of the race, and 2 cars got by me. We finished 12th.
Yeah, see, that's like the pickup truck deal now. They're gonna have them pit stops for that.
Yeah, I know.
That's now you can't, and you can't compete against the factory team with a pickup pit crew. I mean, the guys are good guys. I mean, it's like I told them.
But they don't work together.
I mean, don't misunderstand me.
Yeah.
It's not anything wrong with the guy. But when you've got pit crews that the crew chief says 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning we're going to have a practice, they go out and practice Wednesday morning, they don't like what they see, they come back that afternoon at 2 o'clock and do it all over again. And I mean, how in the heck how can you compete against that?
Well, that's what our trouble was up in Charlotte last weekend. We had a jack man from one team, a front tire man from one man, and a front man, and we had Bart a gas man. Nobody ever worked together, and they even made a practice pit stop. So, you know, we goofed and lost about 6 spots in the pit. But yeah, I see where NASCAR. I read an article the other day that a lot of the independent teams was complaining about paid pit crews that only come in on race day and work on the cars. They're not regular crew members that works for that team all week long. Like they said, like for instance, I think they said Jeff Gordon that about 75% of the team only show up just for race day to pit the car. They're not guys that work on the car during the week for the team. They're outside for professional help. And they said that's a lot of guys complaining. They'd like to see everybody that makes a pit stop be on the team payroll that work full time for the team. But I don't know.
So how are you going to do that?
I don't know.
I mean, how would you ever do that?
Yeah.
You know, that's another argument that it's day old. Oh well, he got more money to spend than I got. Well, you got to take what you got and do the best with it anyway, right?
Yeah. All you got to do is put them on the payroll.
And I mean that's.
Well, there's always going to be some kind of complaint about it.
Well, it's been since day one.
But why did they do that with the pickup trucks? They had a pretty good deal with the tire rule.
I have no idea.
They're not going to make the stop at halfway anymore for.
I ain't got any idea because I went to Dennis Hoots and I told him, I said, Dennis, now the problem you've caused us is now we've got to have 8 full-time employees instead of 4. Because our nucleus of our pit crew has to work for us. Because on Thursday or Tuesday, if we call a pit crew practice, we can't say, oh no, well John works at the Walmart, he won't get off at 5 o'clock tonight. You understand what I mean? And if he'd be a tire changer or a jack man or a gas man, I mean, you got to have those people
there. What about the tire rule? You want to have a tire rule where you only got to settle so many tires?
I'm sure they're going to probably regulate it some way like that, Red. But it gets back into the same thing. I mean, what are you going to say? Well, what can you say? I got to go see my buddy.
A few weeks after taping these videos, Dick Beatty passed away. We dedicate these videos to his memory.